I'm Sonia Azad. Welcome to The Shift, a place to inspire growth, resilience, and wisdom, real connection, healthy conversation as we navigate life's changes and challenges together. Because, as I like to say, we are all each other's teachers. Thanks to our friends at A New Life Story Coaching for making this podcast possible. Hair and makeup generously provided by Glam House Collective.
Hi, I'm Sonia Azad. Welcome to The Shift. We are at Dallas Irby today, and I am with my friend Alicia Woodall. Good to see you.
Good to see you. It's good to be here.
How are you today?
I'm great.
Yeah?
All things withstanding, I'm great.
Okay, good. Great is a good way to start.
Yeah.
You are a licensed professional counselor.
Correct.
Tell us what that means.
That means I provide therapy. It's my main role. My main goal is working with individuals and groups, helping them through mental health stressors.
Okay. Ooh, mental health stressors, which could be what's a pretty wide range.
Right. So mental health and mental wellness is a very wide range.
Yeah.
I think sometimes it gets kind of put into this pigeonhole of just being illness, just being depression, just being anxiety, but it really is functionality, your ability to function. How do you function as a whole? So
How did you get into this?
I've been loving psychology since my senior year of high school.
Yeah.
So I've been a psychology junkie since then. So started off in high school, did an internship with a psychologist there in Kansas. Went to undergrad, graduated, and it's just been here forever.
Yeah.
I've never had different ambitions other than psychology.
Yeah. Well, you're really good at what you do. We've had the opportunity to chat virtually before, but I've never met you in person, so I'm really excited to talk about dating with you.
I know. I was excited to hear this topic. Like, this is a good topic with mental health because it's so necessary with mental health and dating. The two go together so well.
Is this like, do relationships and dating specifically, does this come up a lot with your clients?
It's like the primary presenting factor. It's the thing that gets you. So presenting issue is the thing that makes you desire therapy. And I would say 9 times out of 10, it's a relationship, a failed relationship, or how to make a relationship work. I really want it to work. But those are typically the things that get people to call in. Some type of relationship issue puts them through the door more often than not.
What's your first, like when someone is, presenting with like, okay, I really want this to work, or why did this not work? And we're tending to point toward other people. We talked about this before too in this series. Is the issue ourselves?
Sometimes.
Sometimes.
But here's the thing. The issue is not, how do I say this? It's ourselves in the sense of understanding what's happening and being real with yourself about that, your real experience. What am I really experiencing in this relationship? What am I fighting for to make work? And so you have to be in tune with yourself to even understand those dynamics. I think it's easier to say that person is wrong. It's harder to say, why do I enjoy that kind of person? Or why do I entertain that individual versus then calling that other person the villain? So that doesn't mean they aren't the villain, but the question should come back to self. What about me wants to be with that villain or enjoys that villain or is fighting to keep this villainous relationship?
How do you get to that point where you can do that sort of like take yourself through this self-examination?
Just like that, a lot of those questions. Okay. So it's all about introspection. Introspection is just this really pretty word for ask yourself questions, dig deeper into self, understand yourself better. And so you have to ask those questions, which is why therapy sometimes is the best space for that, because this individual who really doesn't know, it's not your friend, not your girlfriend, not your mom, they have these kind of preconceived notions. It's this stranger who's asking you like, why? Help me understand why. I don't get that. And it's a genuine curiosity, but the answer is more so for you than it is for me. So I'm asking the questions in a very guided way to help you understand it, but the answers are more so for you. And I think people tend to think the answers are for the therapist so they can help give me a solution, but that's not what it's for you to hear it out loud. So I hear you saying you're staying in this relationship. Help me understand why that's good for you.
When you said that just now, I had like a bunch of different flashes.
Exactly. And so you're like, I don't know. Now that I think about it, why am I fighting so hard? Why do I want this so bad? I do find myself crying every night. I wonder why I want to stay here and cry. And, so you have to ask those questions. And that's what introspection is. That's what therapy is. It's really digging deeper into your why.
Yeah. I almost see what you're describing as like setting a date, an appointment with yourself, like what I suggest that people do with workouts. Like, you're maybe not going to do it, but if you put it in your calendar, you're going to actually do this work.
Do it.
So if you make an appointment to talk through these things with a professional, then you'll actually be able to set aside the time to ask yourself these questions, to do that deeper dive.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You'll show up for yourself. Again, you feel like you're showing up for the appointment. I'm showing up to see Alicia, but you're showing up for yourself because you really need that conversation. You really need to talk through those answers. And it's just, I won't say it's easier, but it does help you go a little deeper when it's a third party doing it. It's almost like getting a wax. You probably could wax yourself, but do you really want to?
No. The answer to that is no.
You're a little more hesitant, right? You'd hesitate more. You'd be a little more reluctant. You might not do it. You may stop. So that's why that other person being there makes that process a little more digestible.
I like that a lot. That's a good analogy actually as well. What is the difference between seeing, like you said, kind of that objective third party person versus your friend or your mom or someone who's close to you?
Well, they know you, they love you, and they're going to give answers that they think are helpful to you. So they're giving answers, which is another misconception about therapy. The therapist typically is not providing answers. If you tell your mom what's going on, she'll tell you, we need to stop that. You need to leave him alone. He's bad for you. And she'll give directives that she thinks is helpful because she loves you and she knows you. Whereas with a therapist who does not know you, I don't give directives. I never tell anyone what to do. I help guide them to their answers, but they can never say, Alicia told me I should divorce. Alicia told me I should stop seeing this person, because I never will. However, I will help you find some answers. And if those answers conclude that you should leave, then that's your answer. But it wasn't from me. It wasn't my opinion. It wasn't my thought. It wasn't my perspective of what you should do. It was what you came to.
I imagine you see more women than men.
Typically, just because of the nature of the beast, right? Coming to therapy it's changing. There are men that are coming. And I will say that once a man finds a good therapist, or when I get a man in session and he enjoys that process, he doesn't miss. He doesn't miss a session once they discover it, but they have to discover it first. But yes, women come to therapy almost 2 times more than men.
More. Do they ever show up together?
Sometimes women, they'll want to invite their partner into a couples counsel situation, or encourage their partner. He needs to come to therapy. That happens. Yeah.
If you're dragging someone, does it still work?
Not as effectively.
Yeah.
No. And again, that's more so for you, because you need to answer these questions. I want to hear from them. So it's more for you than it is for the other individual to drag in.
Yeah.
Yeah. But
what do you think is the number one problem in the dating scene, like that causes conflict? Is it cheating? I mean, I would think it's like a trust thing, or someone's breached someone else's trust and they're trying to rebuild. That would be my guess.
I mean, I think it's a healthy guess. There's all kind of variables involved, right? Because you have trust, you have broken hearts, you have people who are out here with broken hearts pretending as if they're great and they're ready to go again, and they're not. So it's a very loaded question of what the issue is. If I had to pin it on one thing, I would say not knowing self enough to know, am I ready for this? Is this healthy for me? And you have to be at a really good place of awareness to even answer those questions.
Well, like, how do you know if you're ready to date again after a breakup?
So like the ability to know that it's about, I just want to find love again, or I just want to be in love, versus I need this. I have to have this. You're open to it versus feeling as if it's something you need, like oxygen, right? I just have to have somebody to love. And to also your willingness to see red flags for what they are and be okay with that, versus it's okay, I'll overlook that
Which
one.
I feel like you tend to ignore that stuff at the beginning, because you're like, I'm trying to be open. I'm trying to and
it's okay to be
do
open to
something different this time, because the other stuff didn't work last time.
Preference wise. So like if you're open to, now I'll go to a seafood restaurant when I'm typically more used to barbecue, right? Then that's open, but not
do not
in personality
compromise.
type. Right, but don't compromise on personality types and things that are very important to you.
Yeah.
Maybe like religion. That's one that you don't want to put off and then say, well, 6 months later, I was hoping you'd turn it around and come over to my side of the religion. That was an initial flag, And so there are things you can compromise on. You're single, you're going to meet with somebody and compromise and blend, but you need to know what the things are that aren't compromisable for you, that you aren't willing to compromise.
What are like some of the foundational things that you would say, all right, there's not going to be much wiggle room for this, this, and this?
Certain personality types, like if your personality is such that you're very strict, versus with someone and I've seen this work before, so don't get me wrong. It's not a hard answer, this cannot work. But when your personality, they clash in a way to where they look down upon. It's different when they compliment, or you like, oh, that's pretty cool. You're a kind of a hippier person. I'm a very structured person. I love that about you. That's different than I wish you'd be less hippie, less structured. So when you can see the difference and blend with it and let them be who they are, that's fine. When you want them to change and switch to be like you, I'd say that's a little bit more problematic. And typically prone for disappointment.
Yeah. Okay. I feel like now this is my therapy session. I find myself, it's really hard for me to unconditionally love someone. Like, I think I often will get to a point in a relationship where I'm like, God, I wish that was just a little different. That's a me problem, right?
It depends on what that is.
Okay.
Because I had to define unconditional for you.
To me, it's like letting the person be who they are. But I think that that comes with a level of consideration, not expectation, right? It's a consideration. Yeah. It's a mindfulness about what is, people's thresholds, right? And I always have conversations pretty open in terms of communication about like, this is a trigger. Here's why. And I'm not saying that triggers are an excuse or like a reason why you could just act a fool, but like, let me just let you know, here are some of the things that, kind of
that you don't like,
strike my nerves. Yeah, exactly.
So it depends on what those things are. Is that a you thing? Is that something you need to digest alone, or does that other person have to know about it? Are you asking? And here's the question: are you bringing it up because you want them to change it? Are you bringing it up just so that they can be aware?
Proactively.
You don't like?
Proactively.
Because you don't like. Do you want them to change it?
Yeah. Well, I think I've brought it up both reactively and proactively. So like, before it becomes an issue, it's like, hey, this, and a lot of this I will say is social media focused, because this is what a hot mess.
Yeah.
Social media and dating is just
makes it
terrible.
Hard. It makes it hard.
It really is terrible. I don't know, like if I was 20 something right now, I honestly don't know how I would do it, because I think it can be damaging, truthfully.
I think so.
There's a lot of mental gymnastics that go into like, who is this person? Why are they talking to you? How are you guys connected? Do I ask a question? Do I not ask a question? What does this comment mean?
How am I being perceived?
How am I? Yeah. Yes. Right. Yeah. So I don't even know where to start with navigating social media and dating.
Social media it creates even more of a mask. Because our social media presence is there. So that's already the front runner. That's how they first see you. If they look you up online, they kind of get an idea. They judge you. Yeah. Right. You're judged by your social media presence. And so that's that first layer. And so then if the reality of you doesn't match that, then there's this conflict of who they thought you are, or at least who they've made you out to be, versus who you really are on a Friday night watching movies at home. It's a whole different person. So I think social media adds a layer of your personality. That doesn't mean it's false, but it's not the whole collective of you. And so it makes it even more difficult. Yeah. It makes it more difficult.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and then going back to this concept of unconditional love, it's like, to me, it's like, I have friends who will even say, I don't even follow my partner's social media because we don't want to see it. And I'm like, how can you do that?
What don't they want to see? That would be the question. What is it that you don't want to see?
Yeah.
Well, they don't want to see.
And I guess that could be a you thing then too, because it's like, well, I don't want to misinterpret something.
Yeah.
Right. So then that's when we need to come talk to you.
Or talk to your partner, right? And just say that's what I see, or that's how I perceive it. That's not what it is. Clearer communication. I think this generation has less communication because of the text generation that we live in.
Yeah.
And so a lot gets lost in the sauce. And so revamping and improving upon our communication skills is necessary, just because we're getting weaker in that area.
Yeah.
We're much more prone to text it out.
We're communicating all the time, but becoming less effective communicators, right?
Less effective because it's very short. It's very quick, and it may not be clearly communicated.
Yeah. Which
is why the emojis are there to help us, right? To help you. I really love that. Here's the heart to emphasize that it's meant to help communicate what we're missing in words.
But then if you're just texting very quickly and like you don't put a heart, then I don't know. I've been in the position like, oh, why didn't you put a heart though? You usually put a heart. Oh my gosh. Do I have to put a heart every time now?
So much analysis of what's being said.
That is so true. So then is it a me thing?
I think so. Here's my short answer to that. I think more times than not, it is a me thing. And it's a matter of what to do with that.
Yeah.
I was reading this article this morning. I think Esther Pearl had mentioned. Are you familiar with her?
Yes.
And she mentioned about the I'm paraphrasing, obviously, the dangers of this solo, single focused society that we're in, focused on self-care, and all these things. And so that's one of the dangers of it, that it's focused solely on me and what makes me happy, and versus the compromise. And so there's a nice healthy medium in there somewhere that we have to find, to where you are self-aware, but you're also able to function with others and make some levels of compromise that are not harmful to you. It's a very fine line though.
It is a
It's
fine
not hard.
line.
It's not easy.
Well, and I think that's what dating is for, right? You're experimenting to find that threshold. It's like, yeah, no, yeah, okay, maybe, no, that didn't work. Okay, fine. So you're constantly doing this dance. But I will say, I've read an article that was like, basically, I am more awesome when I am single, and I feel like I am, because I'm not. It's not in the compromise. I think it's the time thing.
Time in what way?
Time spent giving,
Mm-hmm.
right? So because both parties ideally spend time giving and taking.
Yeah.
But when you are giving your time to someone else, you are taking time away from yourself and from your work and from things that make you happy, potentially your friendships. Hopefully not, but like for me, it'd be meditations and working out and things that are important, right? Like keeping you going. So to find time for all of that, I think these days is kind of hard for a lot of people.
And I think that's kind of what that article was kind of referring to.
Yeah.
Is that it does feel better to focus solely on self, because you don't have to worry about compromise and does this mesh well with the other person. You can just be yourself. All of your time is about you. But then you find that you are lonely sometimes. Sometimes, but not all the time.
Sometimes. I mean, I'm good right now. I don't know. But loneliness is a good, I love this topic too, because when I am alone, I am generally not lonely.
Exactly.
There are moments in time where you're sort of like, I'm catching a glimpse of like, this would be nice to share this with someone. But I have also fallen into the trap of then I'm like sharing it with someone who really doesn't deserve to be there. So I think, but you sort of learn that later in life, I don't know.
Trial and error.
Trial and error,
You do learn that later.
Yeah.
Early on. But to your point, a lot of people are realizing that you can be alone and not lonely. And that used to be synonymous, especially for women. It used to be if you were alone, you had to be sad and lonely and just really waiting for someone to come along and make you not feel sad. And it's just not the case, because we have so much self-fulfillment, so much pleasure in our own things and what we're doing and who we are, that it's created almost a divide there to where a lot of women can take it or leave it.
Yeah. I think a lot more women are sort of in that take it or leave it. And it's really, at least in my friend circle, it's been modeled after men, because I think we spent a lot of our 30s complaining about, well, guys are just trying to have their cake and eat it too, and all these dating apps. And now we're all like, oh, guess what? We can do the same thing.
Yeah.
That's silly. Why haven't we been doing this the whole time?
But I think the motivations were different. There's, and I can't speak for men, but I would say that it was the narrative was you can play around, sow your oats until you're ready to get married. But with women, it really is just finding out that I can be okay by myself. I really do enjoy it. I don't need what I thought I needed, what society said I needed. And when you realize that, when you have that aha moment, it changes the game.
Yeah.
So then it becomes, I date because I like you, or I date because I enjoy spending time with you and sharing my free time with you, versus I just got to make this fit. I just got to check that off. I just have to get married. That's a whole different mindset.
Yeah.
And so you begin to date differently. You don't just give your time to anyone. It's only to people who deserve that time, because it's precious to you. You recognize that my self-time is valuable. And when you don't do that, you're willing to give it to anyone. Just please take my time. Hopefully marry me.
That's a really good distinction. Yeah. When you're talking about that, hopefully, please just marry me, I feel like a lot of women go into that dating app sort of situation with that in mind. They're swiping, kind of like, maybe this one will be my husband. And I don't do dating apps just by choice.
Yeah.
That hasn't really
I'm not very familiar with them. I need to research that more, the apps. But I was under the impression that they have kind of personalities. So like certain ones are for hookups and certain ones are for like, there was one back in the day. What was that one? I can't remember the name, but it was like, if you got on that one, you want to get married like next month. So, but they have so you go on the ones that are, just like you go to a certain club for certain things. Right. This club is for that. That club is for that.
I mean, I think people have found success in them. I know some friends who have gotten married to people they've met on apps. I'm not saying it doesn't work. Yeah. I think it works for some people. And like, that's the place to go to find people. Okay.
Yeah, to date.
Yeah.
Where else are you going to find them?
Well,
At work.
You were asking the wrong person.
But I think that's how it feels. Like, where else am I going to find them if not on these apps? I'm not finding them at work. I'm not dating my inner circle.
Yeah.
And so it feels like it's the apps or the clubs. If you're lucky enough to find them in a
I guess like a lot of people think, okay, well, maybe a friend of a friend.
You're holding on. Like, when is
Like,
the friend coming?
When are my friends coming through for me?
Friend coming? So if you're more immediate, more proactive, it's like, I got to get on something and make myself be seen, at least that I'm available.
Yeah.
I can't wait for you to hook me up.
What do you think is like the biggest mistake people make in dating?
Choosing the wrong person and settling.
Oh, settling.
Settling. Yeah.
What does that look like?
It looks like knowing that this doesn't feel good for me. However, it does check off some boxes. And I see that happen a lot, to where it checks off the boxes. We look good together. We're a great couple. My parents like him, his parents like me. We both have great, successful careers. All the boxes are checked. But I don't really like him at night, but it's just the two of us. We do really good when we go out to the party scenes. We look great together, but we don't really mesh. And so more often than not, people know it. They know. The gut never lies. The intuition is always on your side. And you feel it. It doesn't require a therapist to tell you. It doesn't require a third party to say, hey, I think that's wrong. You just know. But there are times when you're willing to settle because you really want to finish and complete the picture. You're successful in your career. You've done all the things that you were in control of. And now it's time to check off this other social box, which is get married. And so sometimes you'll do it. And some people will say, I'm willing to accept that. I'm willing to settle. It's not a bad settle. It's not like I'm with an abusive person, right? I can settle with a person that does X, Y, and Z because it completes the picture.
So then you live contently, but maybe not happily?
You can be, I believe you can be somewhat content. There are times though where it creates kind of an internal conflict because I'm not 100% happy here. But I believe if you've decided in your mind, this is a concession I'm willing to make, you can live with it. But it does happen a lot where you settle. Settle is not necessarily always bad. It's not as negative as I think it's been given, the connotation.
I think especially with women, we're like, we don't want to settle. Yeah. And men tend to use the language settle down. Like I think just based on what I've heard my guy friends say, like settling down is like, okay, no more fun basically anymore.
Yeah. Yeah. Settling down is no more fun, and settling for, I think, a woman is just accepting what you have.
Yeah.
Yeah. But it doesn't have to be awful.
Is acceptance okay in a relationship? Is striving okay in a relationship?
What do you mean by acceptance and striving?
So acceptance to me is like, all right, well, this is as good as it's going to get. I guess that sounds like settling. Striving is like, I feel like there might be something better out there for me. Like, because what are we chasing? Yeah. When does that end?
It's a really good question, because I think, again, with that self-awareness piece, what is it that you want? What would be better? What are you saying is better? And if that thing that you're saying is better, is that worth all of these other things that actually work? This one other thing that you're saying I want to strive for and achieve, is that worth all of the collective that you have here? And if it is, then that's a yes for you. If it isn't, you have to kind of readjust and understand, why am I feeling that that's so valuable? But it really does take a lot of introspection. Dating is introspective work. That's like the grounding of it. And if you're not doing that, you're kind of just out there blindly, like blindfolded, mingling with people.
Well, and I think, let's just be honest. Men have a lot more time to wander and linger and mingle frivolously than women do. I mean, even women who have frozen their eggs and they got that stuff in order, if that's, part of life that they choose to explore, we just don't have as much time as they do to like dawdle. And so I don't know. I just have a lot of guy friends who are like, yeah, I mean, things happen, they happen. I'm just not really focused on it. So, but these are people in my same age bracket. So you're sort of like, what are you doing?
Yeah. Well, so where does that mindset come from? That they can, why do we believe that they have more time? I know biologically, obviously.
I think biological clock.
Yeah. Yeah. But I don't think we're not as assigned to that narrative anymore. Like we were saying earlier, women are kind of like, well, I can live and be okay without those trappings.
Yes. And that's
the word
true.
trappings, those trappings.
Words are interesting, right? When we start talking about dating, like I know I keep
catch myself like, oh.
I'm catching myself all over the place here too. But you also use the word value. And that's a word that I use a lot when I talk to my girlfriends about dating, because I constantly think of this value add. Like we want someone to add value to our lives in a way that it's like, well, if you don't add value, then I don't really need you. Like, what are you doing here? Don't take up space.
Oh.
I know. Oh, your reaction.
Yeah.
Okay, this is a me issue now.
No. Well, but it's just
but there's a lot of women saying this.
It's true. But when you ask them the further question, like if you go a little bit deeper with, what do you mean by adding value? How would somebody else add value to who you are as a being? For women my age who are high achievers, it's like, there's a feeling of like, I don't want to drag you along. And that, so the perception is drag, and it's interesting you bring this up. I've talked about this before, where
I have a feeling.
Yeah, where where the desire is to have this equally powerful partner.
Yes.
But also have a family. So it's like you have two powerful partners. Where's the family?
Some's got to give.
So when you have this, and if you're a powerful woman, which is not a normal narrative, right? This is more of a modern narrative. What if you have a partner that's not as powerful, as ambitious, but also has the ability to help out with the family that you want to have as well? So you have successful women who want families and equally successful, ambitious men. It's, if you think about older narratives, it was a successful or more so businessman who had a supportive wife. Those roles can sometimes change, but I don't think women are as comfortable with that role shift. They still want the powerful man and the family, but the math isn't math.
The math is so messed up, especially the older you get.
And even the way you feel about it, you still want the powerful man. Who's keeping the kids?
Well, I mean, and let's be honest, there are no kids yet. But
if there were, if you were family, not just you, we're not talking,
right.
We're not talking about you.
We're not talking about me.
We're not talking about you. But in general,
yes.
When you have those powerful women who want powerful men, but they also want families. Now, if you just want a powerful man to be a power couple, that's totally different.
Yeah.
Then you need an equally yoked, ambitious person. We can go kill the world. But if the desire is family, then I question what's wrong with someone who has less power or ambition.
Right.
But you love them, and you have partnership and connection, and their willingness to have a family with you.
And I think that's the unconditional love piece.
For you?
Yeah, I do think that because I'm still like learning. I am doing a lot of self-discovery, introspective work on this idea. Oh, it's so fun.
Yeah.
Can't you tell I'm so fun? People are like, why aren't you? Yeah, anyway. But it's because I don't think I truly have mastered that concept yet.
Of unconditional love?
Yes.
And by if you were to master it, what would that mean?
I think I would be able to see someone for exactly who they are, not want to change anything, and just let them sort of be, right? Like we're interdependent, not codependent, not independent, but just like, okay, sure. Now, within reason too. Like I think these days, I have a lot of guy friends who are my age and single, and I'm like, did you just say that you were going to the strip club like every week? Like that's not okay. Like that's not okay with me. That's my threshold. That's my boundary. So like to me, I'm sort of like, but we speak openly because we're friends, right? So I am learning about men in a new way just through my friendships.
Yeah.
And I'm like, if I was in a relationship where that was the case, like that would not be okay with me. So I can't, in my brain, I can't unconditionally love that person because I would want to change that about that person.
And I'm not sure that we're using unconditional. It sounds like we're using that kind of synonymously with preferences and things that you like or things that you would tolerate.
Oh, okay.
Unconditional love may be something a little different.
What is it?
I think it's more complex than I just don't like that you go to the strip club. Right? I think you can love somebody unconditionally and not think that their hobbies are cool, or not think that it's okay that that's what they want to do to hang out. Unconditional love, at least from my perspective, is a willingness to partner with you regardless of those things, even if they get on my nerves a little bit, but they're not bothersome to my being. They don't mess with my sense of security. They don't cause me to self-doubt. They don't cause me to feel bad. I just don't like them about it. And it's cool. You like that? I don't.
Oh, maybe I do know how to unconditionally love then. I've just been tested.
You've just been tested. Yeah, it's just things you don't like.
That's true.
Things you don't like.
Yeah.
But I can still love you.
That is really interesting to me because this concept of gaslighting too is very okay. Wait, tell me,
because it's just it's so many terms.
Yeah,
so many
just
terms.
Learned really like in the last maybe year or two what this meant, and my friends were like, "He's gaslighting you." I'm like, "What does that mean? I don't even know. Like, is he? I don't know."
So gaslighting essentially is when someone is telling you that what you feel is not what you feel.
Okay.
So you can have two different perspectives. A person can have a different perspective, and it's not necessarily gaslighting. Gaslighting is when they tell you that what you're feeling is not real. You're overreacting. You shouldn't be feeling that way. And they make you question what you're feeling. Self-awareness plug. When you're self-aware, you can't gaslight me. I know what I feel, and you can't tell me that I don't just because your perspective is different.
So then that's it. End of conversation.
That's the end of conversation.
Yeah.
I can't be gaslit if I know what I feel. But if you don't know what you feel, and if you're not in tune with your feelings, you will find yourself like, was I overreacting? Oh my gosh, should I have not been offended by that? Was I wrong to think that that was disrespectful? Probably wasn't disrespectful. Was it? Oh my God, I overreacted. And you start questioning yourself and doubting yourself. But when you're self-aware, no, that was disrespect. I felt disrespected. That's the end of the conversation.
Yeah.
However you feel about it, that's between you and your therapist.
Okay.
But for me, I know how I feel in that situation. And so gaslighting is just challenging and it's typically only successful when an individual isn't confident in how they feel and aware of what they're feeling.
Since we talked about gaslighting, I also want to bring up the term ghosting. To me, it's inappropriate.
Yeah.
To
ghost someone.
To ghost someone. Yeah. Especially someone who, you've either invested time, effort, and energy into, maybe there's been an exchange of that, right? Like, not just like, I'm not talking about a one date and then you never hear from them again. Even still, I think there's an appropriate way to wrap this up and head on out. I do think it's rude. Yeah. So, but let's say the relationship was longer. Like, why are people doing that? Again, is it same thing? Lack of self-awareness?
What's one guess? One guess as to why someone would leave and not say goodbye.
Lack of courage.
Yeah. Vulnerability. Not knowing how to say it. Not even sure what they feel about it and why they want to leave. No real excuse. I don't know how to verbalize that because I'm not sure myself. Or I'm afraid. So it's all of these emotional things and not being tapped into that. So inability to express it. So it's easier just to walk away than to try to come up with the words for myself or for you. I'm not even really sure what it is. So but let's just not talk about it. You've heard of like people that are like ostriches, put their head in the sand as if it's going to just go away. With ghosting, it's possible because you're not married to that person. So you really can just kind of duck and go away.
Yeah. And they do.
And not have to, and they do. And not have to talk about it. So, again, lack of self-awareness, inability to be vulnerable.
Yeah.
Not sure what to say.
Yeah. What's your number one tip or advice for people out there who are like, I think I am ready. I've done some introspective work. I'd like to date. It's fun.
Yeah.
What would you say?
Be honest with self.
Okay.
Be honest with yourself. From the very beginning, be honest with yourself about how you're feeling. And everything doesn't have to be communicated to the other person. They're not your therapist. They're not there to work through it with you. It's for your own understanding. And so if you're honest with yourself, you recognize what you need and what you enjoy and what you don't, then stick to that. But again, I think if I had to give one advice, do not make your partner your therapist. Because that feels awful on the other side.
Yeah.
Because you're responsible for this person's emotional well-being and everything. It puts them in a really interesting space when you put them in the space of being your protector from a therapist's perspective, right? And you're putting all of your stuff on them, like, be careful of this, be careful of that, be careful of, and it's like, whoa, that's for you to manage. I just want to be with you and enjoy you. So there's a way to express and be your authentic self without making your partners your clinicians.
When do you involve family in people you're dating?
That's a good self question. I'm not being funny. I'm serious. I promise you. Every
You're
time
a good
it's like
therapist.
right back
You're
to you. There's no one answer. It really is individual, and it really does. If you have one of those families that's always inviting the whole neighborhood over, it may not matter to bring them to a barbecue. But if it's a more intimate family, and you've never, it just really depends on how that works for you and what that means to you. Does bringing home mean that we're close to marriage? Because if so, then that's your gauge. If bringing them home, it means that this is just somebody I want you all to meet so you know where I'm at, so for my safety. So it really does depend on the individuals. There isn't like a one answer of when take them home at 3 months, It's what works for each person.
Yeah. I think that's, we've talked a lot about self and going back to the self and having a solid foundation in who you are, what you desire, and why,
Yes.
seems like it's really going to help to answer
all of the other things.
all of the other stuff.
All of the other stuff. You get so many answers from your own self-understanding, especially your ability to navigate with other people.
Yeah. Do you have any recommended reading for people in the dating world?
You know, if about self again, there are so many journals out there, not journals just writing in a diary, but like guided books that have been put out. There are two. There's one by Rupi Kaur, which is I don't want to butcher the title, but it's something like Healing Through Words.
Okay.
And it's this thick book full of questions, and they're just introspective to kind of get you thinking about self and dig. And then there's another one, How to Meet Yourself by Dr. Nicole. And they're both available like at Target or whatever. And they're just introspective books to help you dig deeper into who you are so that you go into this dating game fully aware and fully prepared to show up as your authentic self.
And to be clear, this is whether you're dating, never been married, or maybe you're divorced and dating.
I think anybody can do it.
Yeah.
Anybody. Yeah.
Because I think that's another really interesting part of life too. There's a shift between being married and then going back into the dating world.
Oh, definitely. Yeah. Anytime you have a life station move, that's going to be a little bit different for someone else because I'm moving in a different station from married life to back single again. And so there's always going to be a bit of a different variable there.
But it all still goes back to yourself as long as you have a good, solid
understanding
of self.
Yeah. It really is the key. And I know people get tired of me saying that when we do these interviews and they're like, self again. I'm like, self again. Because to me, it's the foundation of everything. If we had more self-awareness, I'm not saying more selfishness, more self-awareness, our ability to navigate. Well, first, our ability to manage ourselves would be improved. Mm-hmm. But then our ability to navigate with others would also be improved because we know each other so well, or we know ourselves so well. I use the analogy all the time about like electronics. And if you read a manual, you have to read the manual to understand how it works, but we never read the manual about ourselves. We never, I can't say never, but we tend to ignore that and just operate on autopilot as if we just are because we are because of our astrological signs, right? Like whatever your astrological sign is, that's me. That's how I operate right there. How Pisces operates, how Sagittarius operates versus how Alicia operates, how Sonia operates. So
that's really interesting. You've given me a lot to think about. Alicia, thank you so much again, and we really appreciate your time. Thank you for taking the time to listen or watch The Shift. I'm Sonia Azad. Remember to like, share, comment, and subscribe. We really appreciate it. See you next time.
This podcast is sponsored by A New Life Story Coaching. Feeling stuck in life, battling emotional hurdles, and repeating familiar patterns? Are you yearning for a fresh narrative? Seek support at A New Life Story Coaching. We'll guide you in unveiling subconscious beliefs and emotional barriers, empowering you to script a life story that resonates with your true self. Embark on your transformation today by visiting anewlifestorycoaching.com. Your new chapter awaits. And don't forget about our friends at Glam House Collective. Let's get glam.